Welcome to a very special event. Our guest today, Keegan-Michael Peele, is a there we go. How about that? I said that.
Let me read that card. Let me read that card. What does it say on that card?
And your name is not.
That's not even on that card. Hi, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, who are you? I always get you guys confused. Now you have to tell them the story later, so why I did that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Keegan-Michael Key is a previous recipient of the College of Arts and Architecture's Alumni Achievement Award, and he is here this week because he is receiving the Alumni Fellow Award from the Penn State Alumni Association. It's the highest honor they give. He was born and raised. He was raised in Detroit and went to the University of Detroit as an undergraduate and got his MFA in acting here in 1996.
That's right.
Upon leaving, he shortly found his way to Chicago, where he was in Second City for a number of years, and then he was on Mad TV for a number of years. He was the host of The World's Funniest Animals on Animal Planet. He was a regular,
Greatest job I ever had. It was the greatest job.
And did a lot of episodic television and films and a lot of comedy. And now he's on a show with, what is it? Key and Peele. That's it.
with Jordan Key. Yes. Right.
Keegan has won 2 Joseph Jefferson Awards in Chicago for his work on in Second City and a couple of other nominations. Key and Peele has received the Peabody Award. It's received the American Comedy Award for the Best Alternative Comedy Series. They've been nominated for many other things, the NAACP Image Award, the Writers Guild of America for Best Comedy Variety Show, and more importantly, perhaps, they were named by Time Magazine as among the 100 most influential people in the world.
We fooled him. We fooled him.
You know him as Coach Hines on Mad TV, as Luther, President Obama's anger management, anger translator, as Mr. Garvey, the substitute teacher with over 20 years experience in the inner city, and as Hingle McCringleberry, the rookie from Penn State. But it's pretty clear that he is no longer the rookie from Penn State. He is now the perennial Pro Bowler. Keegan-Michael Key.
Thank you.
So tell that story first and get me off the hook.
Okay. The reason he does, because Jordan was walking down the street in New York City a couple of months ago, and some guy pulled up next to him in a car and looked out the window and shouted to Jordan. He shouted, "Key!" And Jordan didn't look up. He just kept on going his merry way. And then the car got about 50 yards down the street, and he just heard this very faint, "Peele." Went down the street. So just enough time for the guy to get on Google, and it was like, "Which one is Key?" "Oh, I'm an idiot." Yeah, so that's why he said that, yeah.
So when did you know you wanted to do this?
Probably around 8 or 9. Mom, when did I want to do this? When did I want to do this? 7. A lot of the questions may be directed at her. I'm going to say stuff, and then we're going to fact check them with her. So, yes, I would screw around the house and do little things for my mom, and she's like, "You should go on stage. You should be on stage." And painfully shy, didn't want to do it. And then in high school, finally in high school, when I was a junior in high school, I got cast as Jesus in Godspell. And then that was it. Because the other thing I wanted to do was be a veterinarian, but that requires math. And so I'm not going to do that. I mean, who's going to do that? Isn't that why all you guys are here? So you don't have to do math? So we don't have to do math. Okay.
So what were some landmarks along the way as you progressed and got to where you are today?
You know, the first one, that really was the first one. There was a sense, I remember still vividly in my mind being on stage and feeling, I was like 16 or 17, and I remember feeling like the audience was an organism that was a kind of a living, breathing organism that you were in communion with, pardon the pun. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is, if you can feel like this on a regular basis, why wouldn't everybody do this? So that first benchmark was then, you know what I mean? And it wasn't about adulation or the teachers telling you did a good job or your friends. It was about that communion between you and the audience. And so that was really good. I mean, that was, I would say, the first benchmark. And then when I went to college, in my undergrad, what was interesting is we kind of ran our undergrad program like a repertory company more than anything else. So I spent a good deal of time, hanging lights, not getting roles, doing some carpentry, not getting roles, but which is good because that's the world. That's the way the world works. So it was about having a work ethic installed. But to be quite honest, it wasn't until I got here and there were skills being bestowed to me that I went, oh, that's something I can grab a hold of. And I know that there's a quantifiable way of saying I achieved something. And so being here, I think doing Game of Love and Chance here was a big one. It felt like that there might have been a natural facility that I had for what I was doing mixed with the training. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, if I can keep doing this, I think I might be okay. I may not be rich, but I'll be happy. You know what I mean? If I can keep moving forward in this direction. And so that was one of the benchmarks. And then I think getting the job at Mad TV was surreal. But that wasn't, because I didn't expect that. I figured, as I looked in my future, I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to die someday, and then they're going to take my body from Chicago, because that's where I was going to be. I was just going to live in Chicago, and take me back to Detroit and bury me where I should be buried. And, because I'm not going to get buried in Chicago. So, but being at the Second City and having a completely new discipline to deal with, but still using the training that I got from here, and on that stage and that level, I had no intention of going to be on television. That was not the part of the plan. I could have stayed at the Second City. I could have stayed and created in that arena for the rest of my life.
So when did you know there was a place for you in the business?
I guess the second year of Mad TV, probably. I felt like, they renewed my contract, because everything's ephemeral. If they can get rid of you and hire somebody else for cheaper, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. So when they renewed my contract, that I felt like, okay, all right, we're good. We're moving in the right direction. But then I think after that, it's having a closer and more involved relationship with my manager, and him saying, oh, these people are interested in looking at you. This casting director wants to see. It's when you start going out to casting directors, and then those casting directors see you a third time and a fourth time, and then you walk in for that fifth audition, and they're like, Keegan! And then that's the first step of whatever this means I'm about to say, making it. That's such a strange term, because there's different degrees of success. So you're as successful as you think you are, depending on what you're doing. But that would have been when it started, is that you go, okay, I feel like I'm getting ensconced in this business. This is my job. Getting out there and auditioning is my job. And so when you find yourself doing that, it's twice a month, and then it's 5 times a month, and then all of a sudden it's 3 times a week, and then sometimes there's weird scheduling where you're going out for auditions twice a day, and you got to be in Santa Monica, and then you got to be on the east side of the city. So when you start getting frazzled about your travel time, you're doing something right. You're doing something right. So I think that's when it's like, okay, we live here now. And then the real answer to your question, the short answer to your question, is when we bought a house. So we're like, oh, now we live here. Oh, we live here now. Okay, so I guess we're better work here and get roles here. Yeah.
What brought you to Penn State?
Bob Leonard and Jane Ridley. Yep. I went to Erda's. There's Steve. You see, yeah, the person who had those teachers. Yes. I went to IRDAs, and then I was doing the IRDA callbacks. And when I went to the Penn State callback, there was something about Bob and Jane. There was something about what it ended up being. It was a sense that I got about them that ended up being prophetic, which was that I spent a good deal of time in this place with teachers who cared about teaching. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I've heard so many horror stories about universities where I'm an actor and it's not working out, I'm gonna go teach. I didn't have that experience. I had instructors and teachers who wanted to teach. And that was I had a sense about this place in that regard, and that's why I came here. And I know that's kind of like a rough thing to say about other schools, but I know that that's a phenomenon. And that was what brought that, and also, to be quite honest with you, the topography, the terrain. I grew up in a city my whole life. I went to college in a city, and I wanted to go to school in a place that was bucolic, and where I would focus on nothing but my studies. So we're sitting here right in the middle of this valley, and there's nothing else here. So you may as well focus on your studies. Focus on your studies, you know? So, yeah.
So what stays with you from the program, from your time here?
Let's see. Okay, a lot of the movement work is that I still use in my work today. And then, of course, the short answer is every word that ever came out of Manuel Duquesne's mouth. There's that. Doings is a thing that still rattles in my brain all the time. And it's interesting because when you're acting with other actors who have some degree of training in some way, you can feel a different kind of rhythm when you're performing with them, and that they may have gotten some semblance of what I got from Manuel and Richard and Jane and Bob and Barry, and so there's that sense of the package that I was made, or the new parts that were put on me, all the skin and the bone, it's all been grafted into who I am. So even though the medium I work in now is short sketches, they're still just plays. They're just short plays. You still have to get something from the person you're acting with. You still have to try to achieve a reaction in them. You still have to, so all that stuff has stayed with me. The big thing is, for me though, because I've always been a physical person, it's always been about communicating physically. So that a person in Reykjavik and a person in Jakarta and a person in Nairobi can all get the scene. Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about the object work you did, and I'm sure you used a lot of that at Second City. And not so much now in Key and Peele, where their production values are so high, right?
Right.
So, but that stays with you even. And whose line is it anyway?
Big time, yeah. The object work did two things for me. The mime work was really helpful at Second City because you get to build that world, and the world has more integrity when you're really paying attention to the space that you're in, as opposed to going, I'm drinking from a glass. No, you're not, because there's no glasses that look like this. There's no glass in the world that's that small that nobody would drink. That's not a well-designed glass. Why would anybody drink from a glass like that? So taking the time to glom onto the glass and drink from the glass and put it down and glom up, that's part of the scene too, which to me helped the reality. The other thing is, when you're backstage screwing around with props before you have your props, if you do proper object work, then you really know how long it takes for you to get from backstage on stage with your props. But what you don't do that. You do this, you go, and then I'm this, and then I do that, and then I run on stage. And then when you're in the preview and you've got the real prop, oh shit. You know what I mean? And you're running because you didn't give the air the integrity it should have had when you didn't have the props. So it's like a small little technical thing that was always helpful. Yeah,
You talk about punching up in your comedy. You want to talk about that a little bit with me?
Yeah, punching up is a satirical concept in comedy, which is that it's easier, it's more societally useful to punch up, meaning attack those who are in power, don't attack victims. And so it makes it easier for us to go, if you can blow holes in the arguments that the people in seats of power have, then you're doing satire correctly. So then you can say, oh God, I guess I never thought of it that way. or that's why this person can't get ahead, or this policy is why this person can't get by. And so you have to attack and blow holes in the policy, as opposed to saying, look at this dummy over here. That's not useful. So we try to do in our comedy, that's what we mean by punching up. We try to do everything we can to surprise people in the comedy, as opposed to shock people. And I think there's a distinct difference between those two things. A lot of comedians, and maybe it's just as I'm getting older, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'll just watch things sometimes. Now we do crude, crass stuff on our show sometimes, but we try to layer a point underneath it. Some kind of social or political point underneath it. And then sometimes I just see things that are so shocking and I go, I simply don't understand what's happening. If nothing else, if you're an actor in this room, your job is to be an interpretive artist. So you're interpreting somebody else's work. One component of that interpretation is to make sure it makes sense. That's like the number one thing. And then sometimes I see sketches and I'm like, I don't understand what they're doing. And so no matter how shocking it is, you can be shocking or surprising and I don't understand what you're doing, and then to me that's a fail. But if I understand what you're doing, then you have a fighter's chance. You know what I mean? So we have to make sure it makes sense, and then we can punch up effectively.
Anything off limits?
Not really. I mean, Jordan and I, there's only one scene that Jordan and I ever did where we got chicken. The network said, you guys should do that scene. You should do that scene, and that scene should be the first scene of the first season. And we both went, let's give it a second. We're gonna think about it. We just want to step back. I mean, so the funny thing is, there have been occasions where the network has pushed us. The network has pushed us and said, go ahead and do that. Go ahead. We were very nervous about the slave auction sketch initially. But then that's one of our kind of classic sketches. Because at the end, if you can defend it, then you're okay. That's not a sketch about slavery. It's a sketch about vanity. And it's just put in a framework that no one ever thought they'd see it in. So yeah, there's nothing off limits. If you can do it, if you're striving to make people, if you're striving to take on the challenge being, can I take this taboo thing and do hard enough work to make the taboo thing something that we can satirize comedically, not just shock people.
A funny thing has happened recently, which I'm sure you're aware of. It's on YouTube. The McCringleberry sketch is clearly art imitating life, the excessive celebration in the end zone. Mm-hmm. And then a man named Lance Moore, who plays for the Saints, did the McCringleberry sketch after scoring a touchdown and got
he got fined for it, and he got flagged for it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's sort of like hearing your song in the elevator music, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it's such a surreal experience to have. I mean, to watch him do that. Just sitting at my mom's house in Detroit watching the game, and then 7,000 messages on Facebook like, Lance Moore, Lance Moore, Lance Moore, Lance Moore, Lance Moore. And so we put Lance Moore in a sketch this year. So he came and flew out to California. We put him in a sketch, and. It's talk about life imitating art. Yeah, it was crazy.
Can you take us through an episode of Key and Peele from pre-production through on the air?
Mm-hmm. We write everything at once, so there's a 13-week writing process that we do, and so it's like shooting a movie. So instead of doing it as we go, we write everything first. And we'll usually write anywhere between 250 and 300 scenes, and then we'll pick 100 out of those scenes. And then in the pre-production period, what we do is we have to figure out what the reality of making the scene happen is. So sometimes it's like, so guys, guess what? Can't get an elephant. So what if it was a really large collie? And then we go, is that going to affect the comedy? Or can we get a really large collie? And so we do that, and then we go, okay, so guess what? Can't get a mansion. Can it take place in a one-bedroom apartment on Sunset Boulevard? So all of that happens. You put all the sketches through the reality ringer, and they come out on the other side streamlined, shall we say? And then we go into production. So there's tons of rewrites. I mean, the sketch will get rewritten 4 times before we submit it to the network and say, what do you think? And then they go, sounds good, put it in the pile. Then, if we pick it to go on the air, then again, it'll go through 3 more rewrites. So just about every sketch has about 5 to 7 rewrites. And then when we finally do it on camera, it gets another rewrite as we're doing it. So it's they get massaged and polished and cut and pushed and shoved and nudged, you know, until what you see on television. Yeah.
And talk about creative control.
Yeah. The fact that when I was an actor on Mad TV, we'd finish table reads. You go to do a table read, you read all the material in front of the network, and you do the table read, and then you get in your car and you go home. And you watch all the executive producers walk into an office, and they close the door, and you're not welcome in there. You're simply a soldier. They're the generals. They give you the orders. You take them, and you do them. So it's a completely different and liberating experience to be the general. When you close the door, it's you in the room with the network people. And it's you who gets to say, sometimes a little role, you want to cast a little role a particular way, or somebody else wants to cast it a different way. And I was like, you know, I didn't see it that way. I thought we should cast an African-American woman in that role, because I think that says something, da-da-da-da-da. No, this should be an older white male playing this role. And you're the one who gets to say that. And then you get to say your piece. If anybody, you know, there's always lively discussions, but you get to say your piece. Whereas otherwise, it's, as an actor once said to me, I said, oh, do you produce or do anything? And he goes, no, I'm just a hired gun, just a hired gun. Nothing wrong with being a hired gun. I love being a hired gun, but it's just a different experience. And it's encouraging, and you start to get spoiled. You don't want to do it any other way. You know, you want to be in charge of everything you do.
But it's taxing, certainly, and time-consuming.
Definitely time-consuming, yeah.
So, given your success, what was your first indulgence?
Oh, I don't know that I have done it yet. Oh, gosh. Well, we purchased this house, and it was within our budget to purchase this house, and it had a pool. And I think that was it. I said my wife didn't need a pool, and I'm like, but it's within the budget. It's within the budget. It's a pool, honey, it's a pool. You know what I mean? So we bought this house with the pool, and I guess the other indulgence would be that, you know, we didn't need to buy a second dog, and we did. There's nothing wrong with the other dog. The older dog is kind of looking at us going, what's the situation? Is there something you're not telling me? Why is there another dog here? No, you know, I still drive my 2007, my little white 2007 Prius. I'm gonna keep it until the wheels fall off. It's
perfect. What people from your time here do you still keep up with?
Heather Landry. Ty Burrell and I hang out as much as we can. We don't, you know, he's got kids and he spends a good deal of time in Salt Lake with his wife's family. And so we don't get to see each other a lot, but when we can, we do.
And you did the sketch together, the
Nazi sketch. Yep, he did both of our Nazi sketches for us, and he was our first, you know, like bona fide, you know, guest star. And then when I go to New York, I always see Heather Landry, and I see Diana Pizzari, and whenever I can. And then we try to have parties like once a year at somebody's house. So all of the Penn State alum that are in LA will come over to my house or go over to Ty's apartment. And so Jeremy Hall and Mario Schugel and Kellen Wolke, Kellen Meeks. And then actually when I go home in November, Jessica Rabb is coming to LA for business, so we'll get together. And I'm actually writing a screenplay right now with Tyler Stillwell. So excellent. We got back in contact with each other, and so we're writing a screenplay together right now.
Funny man too.
Funny man, clever man, talented man.
And you're getting ready to do a film in the not too distant future with Judd Apatow?
Yeah, it might be a little. The future might be a little more distant. We've got other projects coming up before that, so it's still in the very embryonic stages. So we're shooting a movie in March for Warner Brothers that Jordan wrote with one of our partners. It's a Key and Peele movie, and then we're producing the reboot of Police Academy, and then and then Jordan is going to do a horror movie that he wrote. So he wrote it, he's going to direct it and produce it. And while he's doing that, I will probably be writing this movie with Judd. And then we are like this far away from getting all the papers signed for the development. We're going to do a substitute teacher movie. So now when I say do a movie, what I mean is that we're going to write a script and then they give notes. The movie meaning the screenplay. So you never know when that stuff's going to come to fruition. So the movie that Jordan wrote is called Keanu, and that's happening. We're making that movie, so that's really going to happen. So we're kind of, it's good. We're stacked up until kind of winter of 2015. Yeah.
Wow. So your time, I remember Chris Rock said, when you have a job, time is your enemy. You know, you just watch the clock tick slowly all day. And when you have a career, when you have a profession, there's never enough time.
There's never enough time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always loved that routine. I thought that was such an accurate and amazing way of putting it. Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's open it up to questions from the audience. I'm sure you have, right here in the front
row.
Boy,
yeah. Quick draw McGraw over here.
Going from high school into your undergrad, into your MFA, and then on to your future careers, how would you say your disciplines have changed as far as work ethic and even just looking at whatever it is you're currently involved in?
So he's asking how does one's discipline change as you get older and older? Frankly, it gets a little, for me, it gets a little more difficult as you get older because there's a tiny voice that's like, like upstage right over here that's whispering, rest on your laurels. And you have to try to find it and murder it. One of the things that rattles around in my head, my styles teacher's his name was Michael Connolly. And he used to say to me all the time, he goes, here's your thing, Keegan, for the rest of your career. Get obsessed and stay obsessed. Whatever the project is, get obsessed and stay obsessed. The same way Manuel used to say, you have to keep the surface, like if you pour a glass of beer, you've got to keep the surface tension on the beer. You got to keep the surface, don't let it spill over, and that's what keeps an audience captivated. So it's the people in this room, it's their stir of echoes in my mind that keep me trying to continue to achieve what I know I should through the skill set that I was given. So there are times when I'm on stage or I'm on camera and I'll go, stop, we got to do that take again. And it's because I'm remembering a voice technique that Barry taught me. And if I don't do it, I'm gonna blow my damn voice out. And so I'm like, we got to take that back. I've got to figure out how I have to breathe, because if we have to do this 6 more times, I've got to be able to do this 6 more times. It doesn't always work. So the thing is, I have to keep those things in the forefront of my mind, because as I get older, sometimes just being around, people go, oh, he's been around for a while, so he must be good. You can't do that. You have to continue to be good. You have to continue to achieve. Because I think sometimes that happens. Like you'll go to the cinema and you'll see a movie and you'll see that actor is walking through that role, and it's because they're tired. It's because they're tired. It's a lot of hard work to make a film. It's a lot of hard work to be on Broadway for 5 years in a row. Do you know what I mean? So there has to be something that you have to set up for yourself that will allow you to surprise yourself. You know, if you have to come out and open the drawer and there's got to be a letter there every day, put the letter in a different place. Unfold it, refold it. Have a friend write a dirty limerick inside the letter. Something that will keep your surface tension there. Does that make sense? Okay, so it progressively gets harder. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Menika.
Hi, how are you? Menika? Menika.
Yeah. I'm the president of the stand-up club here, and I was thinking about applying for Second City eventually. So, like, comedy is kind of like the thing that I want to do eventually. So, my general question was just like, what do you feel like you've learned from comedy as a whole, like from doing it, writing it, acting in it, etc.?
It becomes a cyclical thing. What happens is it comes back to you telling the truth in the moment, and it's So what have I learned from it? I think that what happens is what makes it so difficult is that you can't be thinking, 10% of you can be thinking about the rhythm of how the punchline's gonna hit. But then like another 15% of you has to be thinking about how to technically do the pratfall. And then the rest, see, not good at math, whatever the rest is, has to be trying to affect change in the person across from you. I just did, and that's what I've learned from comedy. What I learned from comedy is it's just a little bit harder than drama, but it's just drama. But there's 2 more dance steps in there. You know, so a month ago, I was on the set. I was doing an episode of Parks and Rec, and I remember watching Amy. Amy was sitting back, and she clearly felt that she wasn't engaged for a couple of takes or something, and she was over by the bar, and she just went, okay, who am I, what do I want, who am I, what do I want, who am I, what do I want? And then we started the take. So, and I'm not on that set, so I'm watching all of the assistant directors, and when she does that, I watch them all freeze up. So like, wait, let Amy get where she's got to get, and then okay, rolling sound, and then you can move. But I was like, oh God, what a simple thing. Who am I? What do I want? Who am I? What do I want? And so in comedy, you learn. One other thing I learned is, if you can, get the lines in your marrow fast, so that as long as you know that, the rhythm will start to come if it's well written. And then, once again, just try to affect change in your partner. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, well, so I was going to say, so then as far as, like, if we were specifying, like, in stand-up comedy, do you think that the most, just being true to who you are as a person gets the most, like...
Well, in stand-up, yes.
Yeah.
She's saying, is being true to yourself get you the most, does it help you hone in?
Would you say communion with the audience?
Yes, because there's going to be people in the audience who generally understand what you're talking about, and then there are going to be people in the audience who completely identify with you. Because the more specific you are, the more general it can be helpful. If you make the lens tight, it can actually be more general. If you're general, generality is the enemy of all art, Stanislavski, right? If you're general, it might be too gray. You want it to be onyx. So you speak about a story from your life, your experience, and how you deal with situations, and then somebody else, they'll identify with you in a more profound way. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am. You, honey, yeah.
Hi, so obviously, like, we learned that acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. Like, sometimes in comedy, it's easy to switch into that quality play. How do you, like, prevent yourself from doing that in your roles?
Sometimes the best thing to do is to trust the writing. Now, of course, now on our set, we change it as we go, sometimes to my chagrin. I was just like, just learn the lines, just learn the lines. So had all these intentions, all these doings I wanted to do, and then Jordan's like, but wouldn't it be, yeah, okay, let's do it that way. You know, and then you have to on the fly. So the thing is, it's trusting the story of the piece. So make sure that you're doing the story of the piece, as opposed to, which you don't always do, because sometimes you find yourself in a really tough situation where you go, oh, this scene is not singing. It's not working, or the crew's not giggling. And so that's what happens is, I think the best way to combat quality play is to say, I'm gonna trust the writing and use these words as if I were in a drama to get what I want. Now, of course, that's how we write our comedy. We try to write it with what we call inside of it an invisible game, which is just what both of the characters are trying to get, as opposed to, boom, funny line, boom, funny line. We're trying to pull the comedy out of the situation, or glean comedy from the situation. And then that helps you combat quality play. So you're not just like, you know, the whole time. We do that sometimes when we're doing scenes where there's an open quality to the scene, where we go, oh, this is just a screw around scene. We have what are called screw around scenes, and sometimes they're just greenlit. We just get to, sometimes me and Jordan and a straight person. And we'll look at the straight person and go, so you know that all we're gonna do for the next 6 minutes is try to make you laugh. You know that. And that's okay, because it helps unlock other stuff. I can't explain how, I can't articulate it, but it's helpful sometimes, because then you know how far you can go and still try to remain inside these truthful given circumstances. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Josh Johnson.
Nice to meet you, Josh.
I'm a tap dancer and I perform a lot. And so sometimes it's live on whether a big media platform like Dance with the Stars or street performance. So my question is to you. I know how to build an audience on site, hold the audience attention, and give them what they want until I get what I want. But my main question is, when did you know in your career that you had a strong audience to be able to feed content to on the regular and will continue to watch?
I think, honestly, probably, like I was on Mad TV for 6 years, so maybe round about the 3rd season I was there, I started to get an awareness of demographics, what they were, and what our demographic was. And then I think it's honed itself down even more in probably a year and a half ago, our 2nd season of Key and Peele, when we started to notice hits online going up and up and up and up and up. And so now there's this metric that you can use online. With YouTube, you can use this metric and say, oh, there's our demographic. Or sometimes it's as simple as grassroots things. It's walking down the street, and if a person comes up to you, if I keep in my mind a tally, what is the demographic of the person that typically walks up to me on the street? And it's fascinating because I think, to our credit, it's varied. It's varied, which is good. But I would say I started to feel a stickiness between me and an audience probably about 6 years ago or 7 years ago. I was like, okay, I see but I'm still trying to discover that direction. What is it, if I'm playing myself as truthfully as possible, who are the people that are gonna come to me? And it's the advice of one of our executive producers on our program. He says it all the time, do your thing. Do what makes your heart sing. There are people who will come. Not everybody's gonna come. Never, ever will everybody come. But you can't worry about that. Can't worry about that. Yes, sir.
When you're like writing a script, how do you continue to find inspiration after like so many years of writing?
For me, I find inspiration through people, because the one thing that the thing that remains a constant is that people are all infinitely unique and individual. So if I'm writing a scene from the point of view of a character, I'll usually emulate a person that I know, because nobody has the same quirk or tick. They have similar quirks and ticks, but never the same as any other human being out of the 7 billion of us here. So that's what helps keep me inspired. Jordan likes to write, I write from character, and Jordan likes to write from situation. Or Jordan notices people's behavior and he goes, ooh, I think this would be a delicious situation to put those kind of people into. And so as long as you have one or the other that's unique, you'll never run out. If you spent 25 minutes with me and I spent 25 minutes with you alone, we would both glean a sketch from each other. You know what I mean? And then you could do it with everybody in this room. And then that's 3 more seasons of Key and Peele. Yeah. Yes.
Hi. Was there ever a period in your career where you thought, this isn't going to work, like, no, it's not going to happen, I'm going to go have to get some boring regular job? And, like, how did you get through that?
I just assumed that I was going to have a boring regular job. But what I did instead was, once again, didn't have any qualms about being poor, because never expected to make a ton of money anyway. So that's the best part, is that you can be happy. You know what I mean? You're just like, we're doing what we want. So what we did is we just started making our own work. So I started a theater in Detroit with a bunch of friends that's still going strong, which, by the way, to be honest with you, other than graduating from this institution, the fact that that theater still operates I'm more proud of these 2 things than I am a lot of things in my career. It's important to me because I felt like I actually learned something and also have a heritage to uphold, in a manner of speaking. The thing is this, I've been very, very blessed. I've been very fortunate that I've not had to work a regular job since the summer of 1992 when I worked in a graveyard, which was an awesome job. It was a great job. Great job. I planted flowers and I chased the bunnies away from eating the flowers. It was great. And I got to put a couple of bodies in the ground. It was really cool. It was cool. But the thing is, never, just don't stop working. Because work begets work. So just keep working. And you're gonna go, well, I'm here, I'm in school, I'm in Happy Valley. You guys still have Outlaw, right? You still beware the cactus, right? So you just keep making work. You keep making work. Because if you're working, you don't need to get paid to be an actor. I guess technically you have to get paid to be a professional actor, because that's what a profession is, right? But you don't have to be paid to be an actor. So we just kept on making art. We just tore up the coffee house, ripped the bar out. This is what happened. It was a coffee house that my friend owned. We tore everything out. I had made an independent film for a friend of mine. She said, we don't have any money we paid for the whole movie with credit cards. We don't have any money we need to have a fundraiser. We gotta do something. We've gotta be able to pay for these credit cards. The wolves are at the door. So we did a play in the coffee house, and all the proceeds went to paying off the credit card debt. And then we did it again, and more money to pay off the credit card debt. And then the owner said, I don't want this to be a coffee house anymore. Let's rip out the bar and all the chairs and tables. So we did that. So we just kept busy at the work we wanted to do. And then we made money here. And then people came in to see this. And you know what I mean? And then I said, I'm gonna go audition for the Second City here in Detroit. You just keep on keeping on. Because, look, if you're in a situation where you have to do a regular job, then you have to do it. But don't stop working while you're doing it. That's the hard part. The worst is when you get a really good regular job. That's the hard part. Because there are people in New York City and Philadelphia right now, and Washington, D.C. who's like, I am a really well-paid waiter. But if you're a really well-paid waiter, you better be a not well-paid actor on the side. Don't say, if you're an actor, what can I come see you in? Oh, I'm not doing anything right now. Do something. Do something now. You know what I mean? So, but in the meantime, find the most interesting regular job you can. Go work in it. That was what it was for me, because that helped me say, I can take this experience and learn from it. Trust me, you have seen dudes I have worked with at the graveyard on Key and Peele. You know what I mean? So, you know. Yes, sir.
Something less technical. What was it like meeting the President of the United States?
I honestly have to tell you, I still do not know how to answer that question. It's so crazy, because there he was, and then this is what comes out of your mouth. You go, he's a man. Jordan, look, he's like a regular man. And then he walks up to us, and he just gets right in there and just gets these bro hugs. And I'm like, it's not me. I'm not hugging him. He's doing it to me. So please get the red dot off of my forehead from 500 yards away. I'm not doing it. And he said, I'll tell you what, it's hard for a brother on TV. That's what he said. That's what he said. And then he looks me right in the face and goes, I'll tell you what, I need Luther. I need him. I'm gonna need him. Charles, it was divine. It really was. He smelled like honey. I'm gonna be honest. You know, sometimes you see people on camera and they're amazing on camera, and then you meet them in person and you go, oh. He's taller than you think he is. He's better looking than you think he is. Trust me, when you meet him, you go, oh, that's why I voted for him. But there is this, and then he did his fireside chat there at the Beverly Hilton that day. You guys want to watch the address? And we were like, yeah. No, we're going to go back to work and sit around with our rest. Yeah, we're going to watch your address. So he sat down in front of the teleprompter, and then he does this. He goes, because we're there, right? Because these two comedians are there. And he goes, can I get some water? And so his producer hands him some water, and he's drinking, and this is because he said he had something in his throat. What was really happening is he had a hard time pronouncing a name on the teleprompter. So he takes this water and he goes, oh, I'm just kidding, that's not poison. Don't do that. Don't do that. I love Joe Biden, but I don't want him to be in charge of the world. Don't do that. And Jordan looks at me and goes, are you kidding? He's doing bits for us. And then the weirdest thing was you're looking around the room and then there's people. So I'm just staring at the United States. And then all of a sudden I catch out of my eye, all of the aides, they're all like this. And they're staring at us. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's the leader of the free world. They're with him every day. I mean, it was amazing. And then of course he left, and I'm like, thank you, sir, thank you so much. And I leave, and then I start to walk after him, and then like a man materialized out of the wall. He's like, oh, you have to stop, and had to stop, and we had to stay in the room for like 5 more minutes. So they took him out a door that I didn't know existed when we came in the room. Like, where did that door come from? So they took him out of this door, and then Jordan and I had to stand there with this woman for like an extra 5 minutes, and she's like, so what's going on, guys? And I was like, good, you live here? Yeah, I live in LA. They activated me today. Oh, they activated you? Okay. And she just, okay, now we can go. And then we had to go out a completely different exit, you know. It was really, we were like, wait, what? Like it's just the greatest thing. That was just amazing. It was amazing. Yes, ma'am.
When did you realize that you wanted to write your own work, and how did you start to do it?
You know, at Second City, the thing is, at Second City, you're writing through improv. And so once I think it was at Second City, I was like I was in the writing process. I'd never done anything like this before. I was floundering about. And then one day, and this you have to remember, this happened, our show was ready to go. We had written the show, we had been writing it through improvisation, and then I wake up on a Tuesday morning and 2 airplanes had flown into the World Trade Center. So we had to scrap half our show, because who was gonna care about frozen embryo legislation and President Bush giving everybody checks for $600? So I was in a cab going home one night with my stage manager, and this is after I had spoken to our producer emeritus, a lovely woman named Joyce Sloan. She was with the Second City. Second City started in 1959, and she's been was with it until 1916. She died a couple years ago. Amazing, amazing woman. And I said to Joyce one day, I said, Joyce, I need you to help me with some kind of context here. Has anything ever been worse than this? And she was thinking about it, I said, JFK. Assassination. Nope. We were open. We were here for the Vietnam War. Nope. She goes, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. So we went to rehearsal, and then I got in a cab later that night with my stage manager. We were going home, and my stage manager and I got in this cab, and this guy, the guy who was driving, I don't know if he was Afghani, but he was clearly from that part of the world. And the cab was bedecked with stickers of American flags. And when we got home, I realized, I went, oh my gosh, he's in fear for his life. That's why he's got the American flags all over the car. And the next day we walked into work and I said, here's my idea. I want to play a cab driver like who's Afghani, and then he's going to have like a Uncle Sam hat and beard on and everything, because and after that, the magic of that working, it became this cathartic thing. You should have heard, the first time we ever performed the scene, I have never in my life yet, no, one other time, have I heard an audience. You hear different types of laughter, hysterical laughter, healing laughter, but to hear this pungent, cathartic laughter from the audience. And we opened the show in November 11th, 2001. And that's when I knew, oh, I gotta keep doing this. And that's how I write. Jordan is a real, he likes to get in there. He likes to create worlds in his mind and do this. And I have to be with the other to write. It's very difficult for me to write in a vacuum. But that's when I knew that you create something and you put it up there and you say, this is from my heart, and the people see it and react to it. And it's really such a liberating thing. It really is. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
No one likes to think of their own
We just got inside the actor studio here. What is my favorite curse word? Oh, yeah. I bet you can guess. I would like to think, I would hope that people would think that, I'm trying so hard not to say that cliche thing, that you left the world a better place than when you got here. But like, to me, that's the only reason really for existing. It's the same thing with fame. Like, depending on what, whatever your spiritual bent is, I'm pretty sure St. Peter could care less about your fame. You know what I mean? The only use of fame at all, the only useful thing about fame is that you can bring attention to something or put a spotlight on something that requires change to make the human condition better. So that would be my hope, you know what I mean? That's a more important legacy, I guess, than those two guys are up there with Monty Python. Okay, great. That's all well and good. Did I help anybody in Africa? So that, you know what I mean? It's that kind of leave the world. Look, I'm the child of social workers, so this is what the answer was going to be. You know what I mean? We're not raised to do anything. I would like people to think he did his best to be a selfless man. If that was on there, I'd be okay with that. He did his best to be a selfless man. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How have these, I guess your downfalls, how have they humbled you?
How have they humbled me? I think what happens is you realize very often one of two things has happened. You either haven't worked hard enough to overcome, get obsessed and stay obsessed. You haven't worked hard enough, and then you have to teach yourself to look at the world in a particular way. My mother remember that little thing you had, Mom, on the refrigerator, where the guy's standing there like this, and he's like at a chalkboard? And then on this side of the chalkboard, there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of tick marks. And on this side of the chalkboard, there's 4 tick marks. And the guy's over here on this side about to make another tick mark. And there are 2 headings. And the heading right here over the 4 said successes. And the heading over here said learning experiences. So what I've learned is to look at failures as learning experiences. The only real failures, in my estimation, are when you selfishly want something and you orchestrate or design a pattern of events to happen so you can get the thing you want. And if you want it for your ego, that's a failure. That's a failure. Everything else is just a learning experience. But if there's malice aforethought in regard to your ego, you're failing. You're failing. So that's what I've learned. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions for you. First one, what was it like to meet the Liam Neesons?
Oh, yeah.
And the second one is, can I take a duck face selfie with you after this?
I think we can duck face one. Liam Neeson's, I've got to get up there. We're at the Universal backlot, and Liam Neeson's comes around the corner like this. Comes around the corner. This big hulking man comes around the corner with a cup of tea. This author just came around the corner and he said, "Oh, God, nice to meet you. Oh, I can't wait." And he had a sauce with him, which was not what I was expecting to see from Liam Neeson. What a lovely, lovely, lovely man. And Jordan said, well, you probably get hassled in the airport, right? People come up and talk to you and recognize you. And he goes, oh, yeah, I don't get it a lot. I don't get it a lot. And I was, because he looks so menacing. So people don't mess with him, you know what I mean? But just a gentleman, well-spoken, but a very gentle, warm energy about him. It's interesting that he plays the roles that he plays. But all actors, whether they be on stage, see, on stage we have more of a luxury of stretching, which is something that I try to do in my work on camera, because I'm allowed to. Manuel used to always say to me, Manuel said, you need to play characters whose hearts beat slower than yours. And I've been trying to do that for 20 years. And now on my show, I know I'm achieving something because in a lot of scenes where I play the straight roles, I'm extremely uncomfortable. So that's a great learning experience for me. It's a great challenge for me to go, let Jordan be the clown and just keep feeding the reality of the situation, which will help him make the comedy radiate. And so, but usually people have an essence that they play when they're on camera. There's another thing Manuel said to me. He said, this is where you work out. This is where you shred your muscles and they rebuild and they grow. This is where you do that. You may end up having some great career doing the life story of Will Smith, you know, down the line. And that'll be fine. That's in your comfort zone, and that's fine. That's fine. But try to realize something here. And so it's so funny to know that Liam Neeson is this lovely, warm man, and he just plays these complete badasses on screen, these craggy badasses, you know. But that's what we see when we put that upon him, and he's done the right thing by saying, I accept that. I accept that as being my lot, you know. Yes.
You said something you were really inspired by was that living organism of an audience. When you switched to screen acting, did you feel the lack of that at all? Do you think that that affected your work, or did you have to make major adjustments or anything like that?
Yeah, it is tough. Ooh, I miss the theater. I mean, ooh. The good thing is I have my scene partner. I have Jordan. And then when other people in the scene, you have them. Because at the end of the day, the audience kind of comes last. You got to get all this working first, and then that becomes supplemental. In the theater, you do that during previews. In television and film, you do that in the editing room. That's why we have screenings of films. Because you'd go to the screening, and then something falls flat, and you go, oops, snip that out, and then it works. And then this falls flat. You just have to kind of shift and move everything around, but that's when that happens. But it's tough, it's difficult. What I do is I use the crew. If the crew's giggling, you know the thing's a hit. If you're breaking other actors and wasting time, you know the thing's the hit. Not wasting time deliberately, but people are like, I'm sorry, I can't keep it together, I can't keep it together. Then that's your audience, the crew is your audience, you know what I mean? Sometimes though, you don't get that feedback until the scene's done. The scene's finished, they go, it's funny stuff, man, it's funny. Funny stuff. So if a grip tells you it's funny, that's 2 million hits online. Yeah.
Did you ever, or do you still get stage fright?
I do sometimes. I told myself a long time ago if I didn't get a little nervousness, that I would have to quit. And it's still coming. It's still coming. But now I'm realizing a lot of the nervousness comes from a really bad thing. Like I said, ego's the worst thing in the world. Living in the now is the best thing. Ego's the worst thing. So sometimes what I get upset with myself with is when I'm experiencing nervousness because of ego. It's seldom about the material. That's what rehearsal's for. You do rehearsal, you use your skill set, you learn the part, and you're in good shape. So you're gonna be okay. You're not gonna forget the lines if you're living truthfully in the moment. You're just not gonna forget because you have to win. So whenever I direct stuff, I just say to every actor, win, win, win. Beat him, beat her, win. You gotta, and the only thing that you can use to win are these words. Win, go win. And so that's not the problem. The problem is I get nervous and I have to kill that. I have to destroy that in my mind. It's like, oh, are they gonna think I'm funny? You know, do your work. Don't worry about them. Do your work. And then you'll have those little magical moments where you can have communion. Over here, never.
You talk about being hungry and staying obsessed. After achieving so much in your career, what's maybe one goal that you're still looking to achieve, looking down the road to keep you hungry and keep you obsessed?
Like I just said, I would really like, I'd love to just go away for a year and just do some regional theater. The scariest thing right now is the artistic director at the Chicago Shakespeare Theater sent me an email a few months ago and just said, remember in 2004 when you came into that musical and we talked that one night about you playing Hamlet? Should we do that? Right. And as my friend Rebecca always says, she always says, if it scares you, then you should do it. So then I guess everybody, I don't know, I come to the Chicago Shakespeare Theater in 2017, I guess? Because I don't know. It's right now, the big thing is, there is a thing happening in my life right now, which is making transitions to dramatic work. And we're doing it. It's happening, we're chipping away at it. And what I want to do, if I had my druthers, I can't even remember the name of the play. I can't remember the name of the one act, Manuel, that you had me do with Kellen. I cannot remember it. But it was trying to achieve, if I could find that one act and turn it into a cinematic project, I'd love to be able to take that challenge of not having an audience responding. Slowing down, it was by James Purdy. James Purdy wrote it. It was by slowing down that heartbeat. So the thing is, because of things I learned here, there are these golden fleeces still out there that I haven't reached. So it's because of Penn State. Michael said, get obsessed and stay obsessed. And then Mr. Duque here said, here's something that'll be difficult to achieve, but if you can achieve some measure of it, it will be worth your while as an artist. And I have not achieved those things. So the craft, I'm still trying to achieve within the craft because they set those things out there, like so many Jasons and Theseuses. And so, you know what I mean? But I'd love to be able to move in that direction, be able to move in that direction dramatically. Yeah. Couple more?
Just a couple more, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I was wondering, you said like that fame, I mean, the only use for fame is to bring light to something, but when you started to realize that maybe like you had some fame, like when you were at that point in your career, when you walked down the street and somebody was like, oh my God, I know you, or like I've seen you, like how did that start to affect you maybe as like a person and in your work? Like how did you bring that to your work?
How did I bring, oh, that's a good question. Gosh, I don't know if I know the answer to that question. How did you bring that to your work? Well, I guess the one thing I would say is it's a call to action to continue to do good work because something clearly was resonating with them. The best thing if someone recognizes is they tell you what they enjoy. And if they can articulate why they enjoy it, that's even more valuable. And that happens occasionally. And then other times you just get a lot, you just get that. And that's a little difficult to quantify, but does that answer your question? I mean, it makes you, it keeps you beholden to, it does, because I want them to be happy. I do want them to be happy. Those who've come to become, good fans or loyal fans of the show. So you want them to be pleased, and you want to keep raising the bar for them. You want them, as Jordan and I talk about all the time, there's always a moment in a sketch where like, here's the walk-off moment, because you want people in their seats to go, these two is crazy. This is, how is he going, would that be the choice you would, how is he y'all stupid. That's what we want people to do. We want them to get out of their couch and just I don't understand what's taking place right now.
By the way, substitute teacher is my jam. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh, thank you, yeah. That was a very well-written piece. I have to say that. I didn't write that piece. That was written in a vacuum by a writer. I did not write that. But I dove into it. You know what I mean? Because I loved it so much, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
What has been the most rewarding experience in your career so far?
I do have to go back. I do have to go back to that little story I told you guys about the. I don't know that I'll ever. Like, I believe people when people tell me, hey man, what you guys are doing is great, comedy's great, man. It's people come home from work, I gotta laugh. And that's true, I get that. But I felt that there was actual healing taking place because of what we were doing on the Second City stage in that year. From September, really pretty much from July of 2001 to the end of that run. We ran that show for about 9 months. It was the most useful I've ever felt as an artist. And then the second would be the Honest Bully sketch that we wrote in our second season. Because it's not a terribly laugh out loud, no one's going to guffaw. It's not going to elicit guffaws. But a friend of ours, a fellow artist, a comedian, said, "You guys, man, you've got to put that in the show." That sketch was on the chopping block, and he said, "You guys would be heroes if you put this sketch on TV," and we did. And so when I hear from teachers or from young people what that sketch means to them, that's probably my proudest moment in regard to Key and Peele. But being able to have the communion at the Second City in that room with the 6 of us on stage, and the 170 of us in the audience, and going through something together. And I don't know that I'll ever achieve that again in my career. It will never be as transcendent as that again. So that is the answer to your question. Thank you.
If you're like me, we have to go because my face is starting to hurt from smiling so much. But we do have something here from Penn State. So.
What is going on here? Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God, that is awesome. Woo.
Ladies and gentlemen, Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my God. Hingham and Quingleberry, Penn State. Thank you, everybody. I love this place so much. I love this place so much.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.